Monopoly was first created by a woman named Lizzie Magie. She went by the name Lizzie, so we're going to call her that. She was born in like 1866. She was the daughter of a newspaper publisher and abolitionist who traveled with Abe Lincoln. I know, very wow background. So Lizzie, she was like political, she was outspoken, she was a feminist, she was way ahead of her time. Another thing Lizzie was very vocal about was her political beliefs. Essentially, she was the kind of person who asked questions about how the government taxed land, which was like, as a woman, you don't do that. Lizzie worked as a stenographer, a poet, an actor, a writer. She did lots of things. And she worked full time, but she still struggled to support herself, especially because she wasn't married, so she didn't have like the help of a husband. And she's like, I know complaining is not going to get me anywhere, so she made it a point to try and earn money any way she could. In 1903, Lizzie entered the world of board games, and she ended up creating something called the Landlord's game. So this game was all about buying and selling property and collecting tax. So the game was actually meant to teach its players a valuable lesson. It was all about showing how the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Lizzie hoped that this would highlight the fact that all these millionaires taking over American businesses were robbing from the poor and ruining the country. So Lizzie did the smart thing and tried to get a patent for her Landlord game so people wouldn't steal the idea, In 1903, she marched into the patent office to protect her board game. But, that wouldn't be easy. Apparently, it was kind of a nightmare to try and get a patent because she's a woman and can't do that. You got ideas? No. Bad woman. Bad. According to Mary Pallon, author of The Monopolist, quote, at the time, less than 1% of all patents issued in the United States went to women. Lizzie managed to get hers approved eventually. I guess she had used her initials to sneak the application through. And they just assumed, oh, that's a man's initials. That's funny. She's like, yeah, whatever. Despite this, Lizzie still struggled to get by. So the Landlord game is making its way around, okay? People, it's like if you know, you know. And it starts to pop off at like Ivy League schools like Harvard and Columbia. And at this time, it was known as the Landlord's game, and then it evolved into the Monopoly game. So the game was like, it was growing slowly, but it was getting popular. And then once the Great Depression rolled around, it definitely like exploded. Unfortunately, Lizzie wouldn't see a dime of this success. I know, Great Depression, how does that make sense? Like, why, what? But like people, they weren't working, they were home, so they were playing Monopoly. Yeah, makes sense. Edward Parker once said, quote, during the Depression, people did not have enough money to go out to the shows, so they stayed home and played Monopoly. It also gave them a feeling of wealth. And this was exactly the case for a man named Charles Darrow. In the 1930s, Charles came across the game and, he at the time was unemployed. He had kids and a wife to support. He's like, book. Plus one of his sons was sick and in need of like some very expensive medical treatments. So Charles is playing Monopoly and he's like, wow, this is so much fun. Yay. And he sees an opportunity to like elevate this. So Charles hires a cartoonist, and it's like a friend of his, and he has them add illustrations to the game board. He's like, cool, this is cool. So then he has a few of them manufactured, and he ends up selling the game to a local department store in Philadelphia. Now, Charles, he skipped all the nonsense. He didn't bother getting the game patented. He's like, F it, no one's gonna check. So he just prints his name on the game. It's like, I invented this, and sold it. Now, Charles's Monopoly is getting major attention and was being carried in really big department stores. And this catches the attention of a woman named Sally Barton. So Sally was married to this guy named Robert Barton. And Robert ran Parker Brothers. Yep. Robert personally thought Monopoly was like complicated, it was lame. He's like, boo, this sucks. But his wife really liked it. And she's like, this is the shit, I love it. And he's like, okay, I'll buy this game or whatever and sell it. And he does. And thank God he did, because at the time Parker Brothers was struggling financially. So once they started selling Monopoly, the sales essentially like saved the company. By 1936, the game had sold over 1.7 million units and brought in millions of dollars for the company. I mean, they could barely keep up with the demand. And this is where those little game tokens come in. You know, the thimble, the dog, the race car. Is there a knife or is that Clue? That's a dagger, I think. And I think that's Clue. I like Clue. That's a fun one. Well, this is Monopoly. Okay. But listen, you know those little things. The hat. I like the hat. Yeah. Scotty dog. Did I say that? Okay. Because of the Great Depression, there weren't a lot of factories open, right? So the ones that were open didn't really have the resources to create like special board game pieces. They're like, we're not doing that. I'm like, no, we make socks. So the manufacturing plant Monopoly went to was actually making the prizes in the boxes of Cracker Jacks. Many of you probably don't even know what that. Okay, so Cracker Jacks, and there would be a prize in the box. You get it. Show a picture. Great. So they gave Monopoly whatever extra pieces they could make quickly. So the pieces originally were a thimble, a top hat, and iron. That's right. A battleship. I don't remember a battleship. Okay. And a boot. A boot? I don't remember a boot. There's a boot. But like this is why the game pieces are kind of like random, because they were like little prizes. Does that make sense? Like they were little prizes in the cracker boxes, and they were like, oh, we could just like make these quickly for you. I don't really think it's that great of an origin story, because in my mind I was like, oh, it's probably like people were just pulling random things around their house and they were using that as game pieces, and I was like, that makes a way better story. But that's not the real story, so it's kind of disappointing. So that's why the pieces are random. The Parker brothers ended up buying the copyright for Charles's Monopoly game from him, the creator, for $7,000. Now, in today's money, it'd be like $161,000. And Charles would also get residuals for future sales of the game. So every time someone bought a board game, he'd get a small cut. That was the shit. He was set for life, pretty much. So as the years go on, I guess the Parker brothers, they start to worry about the origins of the game. So there's a lot of letters back and forth between Charles and the head of Parker brothers. So eventually it comes out that Charles was actually not the person who created Monopoly. So Parker brothers is like, oh no, this is gonna ruin the tour. So the company was like, shit, we gotta like avoid a PR nightmare here, and we gotta do something about it. So they decided to send George Parker, which was like one of the founders of the Parker brothers, down to meet Lizzie. They somehow got Lizzie, they found her, whatever. So they meet her face to face. George wanted to buy the patent to her Landlord game just to cover the company's bases. So Lizzie thought she was gonna get an apology over the whole like Monopoly mix-up, and maybe even like, I don't know, get money or something, right? But the Parker brothers seem to have a plan of their own. So the company offers Lizzie $500 for the patent to Monopoly and makes her a verbal promise to develop 2 other board game ideas that she had. Now Lizzie's like, wow, awesome, I believe you. So she had no idea that, you know, she really just got ripped off. Oh man. Yeah, you just want to trust people and then they screw you over. And then you're like, this is why contracts were invented. Shit. Learn every time. So the Parker brothers, like, they never developed Lizzie's other board games. Meanwhile, Charles went on to collect millions of dollars. Lizzie, unfortunately, never got the recognition she deserved. She's the one who created this game that we all literally have. And then when she died in 1948, even her obituary didn't credit her for her invention. Boo. Nobody really knew Lizzie's name until a man named Ralph Ansbach uncovered her story in the 1970s. This guy Ralph, he dedicated his life to getting Lizzie her Monopoly justice. I mean, people don't really know. You know, it's all thanks to Ralph and people like our Monopoly expert Mary Pilon that Lizzie's name didn't get erased from history, really. So next time you are on hour 3 of a Monopoly session and you don't have enough money to land on Park Place, go ahead and flip that board for Lizzie.